I'm a real estate agent who works and lives in a small town in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains. I work alongside my husband at his family-owned agency that has been here since the 70s. We rarely sell homes or represent buyers for homes that are more than an hour outside our area, but occasionally, when I have an appointment with a client close to the highway that takes one up the mountain, I take the opportunity to drive another 30 minutes towards my favorite scenic mountain overlook. It was a rainy day in May that I needed to assess the progress of a house under construction. This house was only 30 minutes away from this overlook. I decided, after assessing that the house had little to no progress since the last time I drove past it, I would head towards the overlook. There was nothing unusual about this rainy day until I turned left onto the highway leading me to the overlook. Several yards before coming to a stop sign, I noticed a black bird in the middle of the road that appeared indifferent towards me driving straight for it. The bird's response time was delayed for a clean getaway. I heard its body fly right into the grill of my Ford, crunching its fragile bones, and looking in the rearview mirror with a distraught face, I saw that I cleaned its head right off. I'm not a crazily superstitious person, but I do believe in signs, whether positive or negative, that the world provides before events unfold. I told myself, this can't be good. After driving 10 or so minutes up the mountain, the light rain turned into a pour, making the light road slick, fog thick, and extremely difficult to drive. At this point, I could feel something telling me to turn back. I felt as though something was off and justified that it was a feeling of guilt for killing that innocent black bird. I kept driving. 5 minutes passed, and I wasn't far away from the overlook. For the last 25 minutes I'd been driving, nobody was behind me until now. A small red Tacoma truck that had a porta-john in its bed was tailing my car. I figured I would lose the truck since it would probably continue on the highway as I would turn left towards the overlook. To my unfortunate surprise, it followed me and proceeded to inch even closer to my vehicle. I was slightly panicking as the rain poured even harder and the fog made it that much more difficult to see the road in front of me. 2 minutes away from the overlook, I noticed a white truck with its lights turned on and pulled off the side of the road. The car looked as though it was waiting for someone, but what a peculiar place to wait since there was nothing there. The red truck is still on my tail, and just as I was sure he would run me off the mountain, I found the overlook to my left, swerved into its parking lot, and let out a sigh of relief. It was short-lived. I looked to my left, and a few yards away, the small red Tacoma truck was parked as well at the overlook parking lot. For a few minutes, I sat in my car thinking maybe he's taking a lunch break, or perhaps he couldn't see anything past the fog and doesn't want a chance driving in these conditions. A few more minutes passed, and the individual driving the red truck opened his door to get outside and in his arms held a gun. He was a 5'8" grimy man with black hair, around his mid-40s, with a toothpick in his mouth, overalls with a strap hanging off, and a shotgun that would make the bravest of men cower. He was making strides toward my car, but I didn't want to wait for him to reach his destination. I trembled with immense fear and immediately started my car and headed the direction I came from. The grimy man did not follow me in his small red truck, but the white truck parked off the side of the road from earlier was on my tail and driving even more recklessly than the man with the shotgun. The rain was lightening up, but the fog lingered longer than I wished it did. He drove on my tail for 10 minutes until I finally lost him in the fog and quickly turned right onto a back road. I was relieved this did not turn into an impasse on the mountain. So this happened over 20 years ago. I, at the time, was an 11-year-old male and lived in a smallish town about 20 minutes outside of Boulder, Colorado. My friend and I decided to ride our bikes to McDonald's in the afternoon after school for some food, which was nothing out of the ordinary. As I'm standing in line, all of a sudden, an old creepy man starts rubbing my shoulders. I turned slowly to look at him, and he gave me this creepy smile like it was normal to be doing that. First, I thought it was my grandpa, then I realized he lived about 8 hours away. Anyway, I look at my friend in terror, and he's just laughing at the situation. I'm speechless at this point because I'm so shocked I don't know what to do. I'm looking around at people, and they're just staring, probably waiting for me to ask for help. I strongly feel that if we went later in the evening, or it wasn't busy, that guy might have tried to take me. It still weirds me out. It was late in the evening and getting dark, and I, a 27-year-old female, was just leaving work. I was walking through the parking lot. It's a shopping center, but there were not a lot of cars left, to my car when two men started walking up to me and told me that they had a free TV they wanted to give away. They motioned to their truck close by. I declined, and they persisted, saying I just need to come and take a look in the back seat of their truck, tinted windows, and check out the TV. I worked at a nonprofit at the time, so I declined again and said they should come back the next day and donate it to our organization so we could find it a good home. At this point, I was shuffling quickly to my car and immediately hopped in and drove off. Once out of the parking lot, I called the sheriff's station to report it. Maybe overkill, but I was very weirded out. I gave what description I could of the truck, color, and what I caught of the plate, and said I just wanted to call it in to them in case something about a truck pops up again somewhere. Never heard any more on it and never saw the two men again, and they did not come back to donate the TV. Okay, so bear with me here because the last week has been kind of ridiculous. I'm a 37-year-old female and I have a 14, almost 15-year-old daughter. This has been her last week of school, so things have kind of been slowing down around here, but the second they did, we have this whole other problem to worry about. So I'm married, but my husband is currently 2 months into a 3-month contract overseas, so it has just been me and my daughter by ourselves for the past 2 months. Most of my family live a good 3 hours away from us, so I can't really go to them for help. The first thing that happened was on Monday night, when my doorknob was being twisted. It was past 9 p.m. I was watching TV in the living room. When I turned to see what was twisting it, I heard a light knock. I grabbed my pistol because it was so late and I wasn't expecting anyone. By the time that I looked through the peephole, the person on the other side of the door started walking away. They had a hood over their head, so I couldn't make out any physical attributes. On Tuesday, I was getting ready to run some errands around midday. I was in my bedroom changing clothes and saw the shadow of somebody peering through the blinds. I was only wearing a pair of shorts and a bra, so you can understand that I was a little perturbed by this. My first instinct was just to grab a t-shirt and switch rooms. Didn't even cross my mind to look out the window or even call the police. The next thing came on Tuesday night when I got out of the shower. Now listen, I admittedly don't take my clothes into the bathroom with me, as my bedroom is right across the hall from the bathroom. It was around 10 p.m. As I was walking, I saw the flash of a camera go off from outside the window at the end of the hall. At this time, I was full on titties out, bearing it all. I called the police, who came and took my statement. 2 things that bothered me were the fact that my blinds were closed and there is the end of one of them that is broken, so the perv utilized a small window to snap the picture. The other was the fact that I don't really have a designated shower time, so they had more than likely been watching me for a while. On Wednesday afternoon, my daughter and a few of her friends were swimming in our subdivision's pool, and she said that there was a weird guy that was watching her and her friends swimming. He wasn't in a bathing suit or anything like that, so his sole purpose of being there was to be a creep. She's curvy like me, but remember that I said she's only 14. I have no clue if this was the same guy, but it bugs me regardless. They all eventually just left. Yesterday, my daughter claimed that her underwear drawer had been gone through. She also says that she was temporarily locked out of her tablet because somebody had tried accessing it so many times with the incorrect passcode. I lock my doors religiously, so whoever this is has access to my condo. This could be the landlord, his wife, or any of the maintenance crew. It terrifies me beyond belief that this person could barge in at any time and do whatever. I notified the police again, claiming that the condo was broken into. They said without any proof and with no signs of forced entry, there was nothing they could do. I feel a little helpless here. I've already started taking precautions, such as putting a black sheet over my daughter and I's windows. I've also ordered some reasonably priced security camera for the inside of the house to hopefully catch whoever this is when they come back. I also make sure that both her and I have clothes in the bathroom and make sure to only change in there. I'm open to any sort of suggestions that I may have missed. And understand, please, that I know I was a little careless and my daughter's safety and well-being is my top priority. I also haven't told my husband about it and don't intend to until he gets home. I don't want him to be worrying about this for the next month and have something happen to him because his mind is somewhere else. This was back in the late 80s in San Antonio, Texas, when I delivered pizza while in university. I hated it when the order takers would accept orders from the sleazy motels in the area. One time I had one of these. I got to the cesspit and knocked, but naturally no answer. I hustled back to the car, suspecting a trap. Just before I could close the car door, a twitchy slime ball materialized in the way, so I couldn't. He's very obviously looking all around to see if there are any potential witnesses to whatever he's planning. My left hand was on the inside door handle. With my body obscuring the movement, I slid my right hand down beside my seat and grasped the handle of my Bowie knife, preparing to use it on the creep if he tried anything. Although a woman, I was a head taller than Scum Dude and strongly built. Still twitchy, high on meth probably, and looking all around, he asks if I want to come into his room and do drugs. He obviously thinks this is a perfectly normal question to ask people. My grip tightens on the hilt as I'm silently praying that I won't have to gut this creature. I politely decline and say I have to go. He insists. I decline more firmly. He looks at me again for a long moment. I could almost hear the squeaky gears turning, and fortunately for him, he decides he can't take me without at the very least attracting attention. He backs off, I slam the door, and peel out. I'm not really sure who the encounter was more creepy for, me, who had no fear of the unarmed little druggie, or the unsuspecting would-be robber who was unknowingly a heartbeat away from looking at his intestines spill out on the ground to bake in the hot Texas sun. I'm female, 44, from the U.S., on an extended solo trip in Portugal. Almost every person I've met here has been so nice, welcoming, open, and fun. I think my guard has been down as a result. A little over a week ago, I was out walking around and taking care of some errands. A younger guy who said he's visiting from Tunisia approached me and started chatting me up. He asked me what I was doing, and I told him I had some shopping to do. He offered to go with me, which I thought was odd, but then I figured, what's the harm? He seems like a nice guy. After visiting a couple of stores with me, he asked if I wanted to grab some food or a drink. I actually was hungry, so I agreed to go for a quick bite. However, I thought it was odd again when he kept trying to get me to go with him to the part of town where he's staying, which is a 15 to 20-minute metro outside of the center. We were in the center where there are countless places to eat. I told him I preferred to stay in the center. We finally sat down at a nice little sidewalk cafe, and while we were there, it became increasingly clear to me that he wasn't my type for dating nor friendship. So I told him I had some work to do and needed to head back. He asked if he could give me his number, and for some stupid reason, I let him enter it into my phone, and then he pressed send. So now he had my number as well. He then tried a couple of times to kiss me, but I dodged him and gave him a quick hug instead. He kept pressing me hard about when he would see me again, and I kept telling him I don't know and that I was kind of seeing another guy, etc. He was being very pushy. I felt relieved when I finally got away. A little later, he texted me on WhatsApp, but from a different number. I knew it was him, though, and didn't respond. Then he tried calling, but I didn't pick up. I ended up meeting up with a friend that night, and when I looked at my phone around 2 a.m., I had several texts from this guy and 5 missed calls. Creeped the fuck out. I blocked him. A few days later, I walked out of my apartment to go meet some friends. I was staying in a very busy area in the city center, so tons of people were around. What I didn't notice when I entered the crosswalk was that he was on the other side. It was awkward, to say the least. He asked me what I'd been doing the past few days. Then he asked why I blocked him. I told him it was because I didn't recognize the number. He said it was because he was using a SIM card and told me I should unblock the number. Just to get him off my back, I told him I would, but I needed to go meet my friends. Needless to say, I didn't unblock. A few nights later, last night, I was staying in a new apartment at a slightly different area of town. I was out with some new friends in a busy touristic area. Guess who just happened to run into me again? Only this time he had a much bigger male friend with him. He was like, "Hey, wow, what are the chances?" And they grabbed a couple of chairs and joined us without being invited. When they went inside to order drinks, I told my friends that the guy who had just sat down next to me may or may not be stalking me, and I needed to bail. I kept looking over my shoulder as I walked back toward my place. On the walk home, I ran into a couple of my guy friends and sat down with them. Not 20 minutes later, Creepo and his friend were magically there. This time, I kind of lost it and started angrily asking him why he keeps showing up. He angrily defended himself, and then they left. Now I'm afraid to go out alone in what previously felt like one of the safest cities I've ever traveled to. I'm afraid that if we happen to run into each other again, I don't know what he'll do now that I've angered him. What should I do if he approaches me again? I'm also questioning whether I just overreacted to something that was merely a coincidence. It's not that big of a city center, and I've run into other people I know here several times. Maybe it was just bad luck that I ran into someone I didn't want to see again. 3 times in a few days. How would he know where to find me anyway? I go to different places all the time. Also, I'm tall and light blonde in a region where most people are not, so I'm easy to spot. What do you guys think? Am I being stalked or just being paranoid? If you were in this situation and this guy showed up again, what would you do? This was around 2 years ago. Given recent events, I've been thinking about this story a lot. My boyfriend and I were on our 2nd or 3rd date at that time, and we decided to get lunch and walk around downtown. I live in a coastal city in California, and unfortunately, homelessness has become a huge issue in this area. There were a good amount of homeless people downtown, but in general, if you don't bother them, they don't bother you. However, there was one dude we kept passing by at least 3 to 4 times. Each time he would stare us down with a blank look on his face, not saying a word. Eventually, I gave him a smile and a polite hello as we passed, and he had no reaction. We both got weird vibes from this guy. Something was definitely off, and it felt like he might have been following us. We decided to call it a day and didn't think much else of him. Next morning at work, I found out there was a shooting at a police department in a town 15 miles north of us. 2 officers shot and killed, and the shooter was later killed in a shootout with the cops. I get to the mugshot of this guy and realize it's the same person we saw downtown yesterday, only a few hours before the shooting occurred. The blank look he had on his face still creeps me out, and I'm glad we followed our guts and went home. This story is not mine. My father told me recently. Before I start, I have to say that my parents and I live in a town in Spain that is surrounded by forests, so it is quite isolated. It is also quite common to go hunting, not only for the simple fact of hunting, but also to prevent animals from reproducing excessively, since the food chain has been broken by the extinction of some predatory species, so the balance is balanced. When my father was younger, he used to go hunting alone, something quite dangerous if you go into the forest, not only because of the animals. And most of the time it was night, so he had to walk back to the car in the dark, lit only by a flashlight that he always carried in his hunting backpack. Nothing ever happened to him, so he was pretty calm because he knew the area. That day, he left home early and took his backpack full of food to spend the day and come home at night. He spent the day walking, but in the end he did not catch anything and just enjoyed doing some hiking and enjoying nature. So when it was very late and he was tired, he made his way to the car to go home. While he was walking, he heard how they were following him on the right side of the road, but later he also heard noises on the left side. He discarded the idea that it was a person, since that area of the forest was quite far from the town and quite isolated. He hurried to get to the car, although he kept hearing noise in the darkness of the road he was leaving behind. When he got into the car, the headlight beams illuminated the eyes of at least 10 wolves. So no one was following him. It was a pack of wolves following their next prey. This was a bizarre incident, and afterwards it left me very unsettled. To set the scene, I live in a quiet suburban neighborhood that is a few blocks away from a small-town main street with shops and restaurants. I walk the entirety of the neighborhood frequently, sometimes alone and sometimes with my daughter. I have never seen anything strange or untoward until today. As I was making my way toward the Main Street area, I noticed a mother with 2 small children pushing a stroller on the corner of the residential street. Suddenly, an older woman, mid-70s looking, carrying a shopping bag, comes in a beeline for them. She gets within 3 feet of the stroller, turns around, bends over, points her butt in the air at them, and starts twerking. I was under the impression this was a relative, perhaps their grandmother, trying to make them laugh. It was odd to see such an old woman do something like this in the middle of the sidewalk. Then the old lady just took off across the street and waited until she was about a block away and looked back to see our reaction. It was very unsettling how she wanted to see what we were doing. I got bad vibes and crossed back over to avoid her. It was then that I locked eyes with the mother of those 2 small kids, and the look on her face was like, "What the fuck was that?" And I knew for a fact then that she did not know this woman. I gave her the what the fuck look back, and we both took off away from this woman. This was very unsettling because it was completely unprovoked. The way this old woman moved, she was quick, as if she was maybe on drugs. I've never seen a grandma twerk like that before, and had a mom and her 2 young children. I don't know, it was weird, creepy. I hope I don't see her again. She had a really manic look in her eye when she looked back at us. Hello, my Vickies. Thanks for listening. If you like what you heard and you haven't subscribed already, please do subscribe and hit the like button, as they're both very helpful to my growth here on YouTube. If you have a suggestion or simply want to say hello, please leave a comment. I love to hear from you guys. If you have a story of your own you'd like to share and possibly have read on the channel, send it to me at veronica45stories@gmail.com. Link is also in the description, as are other ways to support the channel if you feel so inclined. I post every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday by 5 p.m. Pacific, as long as I'm not sick, but I'm still getting over a cold. Thanks again for being here, you guys. I appreciate it more than I can say. And until next time, be good.